It began long before the world knew. The air that night carried an unnatural stillness, the kind that comes before something that will never be forgotten. In the deserts stretching between Isfahan and Fordo, the stars hung low and the wind whispered against the domes of concrete and steel that guarded what was never meant to be seen. Midnight was near and the sky was empty, or at least that's what radar believed. Far above the sleeping cities, something moved in silence. Invisible to satellites, gliding beyond radar reach, a formation of B-2 Spirit bombers crossed the borders of Iran. Their wings sliced through the blackness like ghosts of metal, carrying a mission few on Earth knew had begun. The call sign was simple, almost biblical in its precision. Operation Midnight Hammer. Inside the cockpit, there was no chatter, only the breathing of two men who had trained for years to feel nothing. Their screens glowed a cold green, illuminating faces that betrayed neither fear nor pride. Every button, every flick of a switch was rehearsed 1,000 times. The voice from command whispered through the comms like a ghost in the static. Hammer is live. At the Pentagon, the war room was lit with the pale blue light of digital maps. The president watched from a distant, sealed room, surrounded by silence and consequence. The coordinates on the screen pulsed red: Fordo, Natanz, Isfahan. Deep beneath those names lay centrifuges, spinning secrets, reactors pulsing with forbidden energy. Years of negotiations, threats, and half-truths had led to this one night. The decision was made not in anger, but in inevitability. The world had warned, and the world had waited. But when words fail, engines answer. At exactly 12:17 a.m. local time, the first target appeared on the pilot's HUD, a valley wrapped in darkness where the Fordo enrichment facility lay buried beneath layers of rock and reinforced steel. The order was clear: deliver the message and vanish. Natanz had been built to withstand siege, to survive earthquakes and sabotage. What it couldn't survive was the weight of midnight itself. The bombs came down in precision, piercing the ground with mathematical certainty. One by one, the centrifuge halls folded inward, collapsing into fire and darkness. In the command posts above, officers shouted into dead radios, their words swallowed by the roar of collapsing Earth. Thousands of miles away in Washington, the silence in the Situation Room was heavier than the desert air. Screens flickered with infrared images, bright blooms of heat marking impacts. "Target Alpha neutralized," a voice finally said. No applause followed. There never was, not for nights like this. But Operation Midnight Hammer wasn't just an air raid. It was a message written in soundless sky. Intelligence teams across the world scrambled to decode the aftermath. Satellites saw flames. Seismic sensors mistook explosions for earthquakes. On social networks, people filmed flashes on the horizon, their voices trembling, unaware they were capturing the birth of a new chapter in a silent war. By 1:02 a.m., the third wave was already inbound toward Isfahan. This was the hardest target, part civilian, part military, and dangerously close to the heart of Iran's population centers. The pilots knew one mistake could ignite more than buildings. It could ignite history itself. Clouds gathered over the city, thick and electric. The bombers descended through them, invisible shadows above a sleeping world. Inside one aircraft, the co-pilot stared at the navigation screen. He thought of his family, of how tomorrow they'd wake to headlines he could never speak of. "For them," he whispered under his breath, though no one heard him. At 1:11 a.m., the last of the payloads was released. The ground answered with thunder. Fire rolled across the landscape in waves. In Iran, rescue teams clawed through rubble, searching for survivors amid twisted metal and radioactive dust. The faces of engineers, soldiers, and civilians blended under the same coat of ash. The smell of burning chemicals lingered in the wind. Somewhere, a child cried in the dark, his voice echoing across the valley. The night that had begun with silence ended with the sound of loss. For intelligence agencies, the operation was a masterpiece. Perfect execution, 0 casualties among American forces, all targets obliterated. But for those who believed the world could still be reasoned with, it was the sound of doors closing forever. Diplomats spoke in calm, rehearsed tones, while militaries recalculated their arsenals. By the next evening, the phrase "Midnight Hammer" had leaked into global news feeds. Conspiracy forums lit up. Some said the strikes were a warning. Others whispered that it was only the first stage of something far greater. The Pentagon neither confirmed nor denied. The president's only words were delivered from the Oval Office. The United States will act to prevent threats before they become irreversible. In Tehran, the response was slower but inevitable. Officials vowed retaliation, their voices trembling between anger and disbelief. Propaganda flooded the airwaves. Footage of destroyed facilities played on repeat. Yet beneath the fury there was a deeper silence, the understanding that they had been seen, that nowhere was beyond reach. Weeks passed. The satellites saw the fires dim. Reconstruction began in secret. But the fear remained, an unspoken awareness that somewhere above, unseen machines still circled, waiting for another order that might never come, or might come tonight. For the pilots, life returned to a strange kind of normal. They trained, they slept, they waited. Their mission existed only in classified files and memories they couldn't share. Some nights, when the wind outside the base shifted just right, one of them swore he could still hear the low hum of engines slicing through foreign air. Operation Midnight Hammer became legend before it was history. Military academies would one day study its precision, its ethics, its consequences. But to those who lived it, the mission wasn't about politics or power. It was about a single idea that in a world built on secrecy, silence can be the loudest weapon. And so the desert returned to quiet. The craters cooled, the dust settled, and the world pretended to move on. But the shadows above never really left. They lingered in every rumor of an unidentified drone, in every radar blip that appeared and vanished too fast to track. Somewhere in that silence, the hammer still waited, patient and unseen, for the next midnight.